When I was 19 and strapped for cash, I temporarily took a second job working as a waitress at a diner. It was open until 3 a.m. on weeknights and 24 hours on weekends. On the weekends, it was always a bunch of drunk kids that would come after they left the bars. During the week, most customers were people working overnight shifts or just getting off from work. I would do the overnight shifts twice a week. Anything more than that, and I would probably have passed out from lack of sleep. I'd be the only server past 10 o'clock on weekdays because there weren't many customers, especially at the later hours of the night. One night, a larger man came in alone around 1 a.m. There was only one other customer in the restaurant at the time. I believe I seated him, and he started talking to me in a flirtatious way right away. It was always the older, unattractive ones who would be the most flirty. I had to deal with it with a smile, though, as I basically was working for tips. He ordered a burger and a milkshake and told me his name was Trevor. Trevor would keep staring at me from across the diner as I sat doing things on my phone. He was the only customer left at this point. He called me by my name over to the table. I went over with a smile, and he asked for the check. He left after paying, and when I went to collect the tip and clean the table, I noticed, along with the $5 tip, he left his number and a winking face on the bill. Gross. I crumpled it up and threw it away. I thought that was the end of Trevor and my story, but it wasn't. A few nights later, Trevor came in again, super late at night when no one else was in the place. I greeted him and sat him at a table. He actually hit me with a, "How's my favorite server doing tonight?" which was odd, considering I had only served him once. He started some conversation with me, and I was way too exhausted for this, but I had to put a smile on my face and entertain it. I thought maybe he'd give a better tip if I acted interested, but that backfired because he mistook my friendliness as interest and invited me to come on his boat sometime. I asked what kind of boat it was to play along, and he showed me a picture of this tiny little thing that could barely fit 2 people. Based on the looks of it, I said, "Oh, wow, my dad has a boat too." I should have said boyfriend looking back now, but I was trying to get a good tip out of him. He asked for my number, and I told him I'm not allowed to give customers my number. I could get fired. He actually believed this, but after he left, he once again left his number on the bill. This time with a note, saying something along the lines of, "I bet you were just shy last time. Don't be shy this time. You can text me. It'll be our little secret," followed by another winking face. He again only tipped $5. This guy was a creep who didn't even tip well. I hope not to see him again, but this wouldn't be a story if I didn't. He came in the next week on another night I was working. It had to be like 2 a.m., and it seemed like he'd always come in right as the place would become empty, almost like he was sitting in the parking lot waiting to come in when I wouldn't be serving any tables. This time, he came in, and the first thing he said was, "You won't call me, right?" But he didn't say it with a smile. He said it with a serious face. I told him, "I'm really flattered, but I really can't text customers." He didn't say anything. He just walked out. I was relieved, honestly. I'd rather he just stopped coming in. The next day, while at my other job, I got a text from one of the other waitresses asking if I knew who the fat, bald guy was. I said, "Yeah, he's so creepy. Why?" She said that he claimed he just wanted the name of that really amazing waitress from last night. Later that day, I got a text. It was from Trevor. He said, "Hey, it's Trevor, your favorite customer. I know you said you can't give your number out, so I took it upon myself to get it myself. Now you didn't break any rules, haha." I was at a loss for words. I grabbed it and got in my car. Its contents were disturbing. It was a bunch of pictures of me in the diner, taken from the parking lot. The pictures got more disturbing, though, when they started being of my apartment, and of me standing on my front deck or unlocking the front door. Most disturbing of all was a picture taken through the front window at night. I drove straight to the police precinct with the photos to report this. These pictures, accompanied with the text I received from him, were damning enough. I stayed at my parents' house that night, and the next day, a detective called that Trevor guy and told him if he continued to contact me, it would be considered harassment and he would be arrested. I still quit the job at the restaurant just to be safe. My lease was up the next month, so I moved to a new apartment. I didn't want to have any chance of that man finding me again. It was the first and only true stalker I've ever dealt with in my life.
If you hit that like button, there's a good chance someone else's spine will get tingled by these stories.
It was the holidays, and most of my friends were away, so I had decided to look for a part-time job to earn a bit of money. After walking around for about a week, I finally got a call from a nearby restaurant asking me to come in for a trial. I had a fair bit of waitering experience, so I wasn't too surprised when the owner offered me the position. The place had a really creepy atmosphere to it. It was small, dimly lit, and every so often a terrible smell would circulate through the air. It wasn't somewhere I would have usually gone, but I needed the money and kept reminding myself that I'd only be here until college started back up. It was around 10 p.m. and I was out the front by myself, cleaning the cutlery while I waited for the last table to leave. It was a table of 4 big guys, and they were pretty rough looking. In fact, if I passed them on the street, I would have assumed they were homeless. Half an hour passed, and they finally got up to leave. I smiled as one of them came to the register to pay. "That's $42.50 altogether," I said. He immediately handed over a bunch of crinkled notes with a big grin on his face. Unfortunately, I had seen this kind of look before and braced myself for the cheesy pickup line. "You doing anything tonight, cutie?" he said, bringing himself closer to the register. "Thank you. Have a good night," I replied, trying to make it clear that I was not interested. He laughed and walked out the door, mumbling something under his breath as he went. As soon as he was out of sight, I quickly cleared the dishes, cleaned down, and got changed out of my staff uniform. I waved goodbye to the last kitchen hand as I walked out the door and into the night. My house was only a couple of blocks away, so every night I walked to save gas. I had only walked for about 5 minutes when a loud whistle startled me. I looked off into the direction it came from and froze in fear. It was the same guy from the restaurant. He was on the opposite side of the street, signaling for me to come over with a large grin on his face. I took a pause before my instincts kicked in, and I started to quickly walk away. My house was still about 10 minutes away, and I could feel him getting closer with every step. Terrifying thoughts were racing around in my head, knowing very well that this could end badly. I turned the corner and started to sprint down the footpath. I felt tears gather in my eyes as loud footsteps followed closely behind me. I didn't look behind out of fear when all of a sudden, a hand firmly grabbed my shoulder and yanked me backwards. I turned to see the man. His face was red and his grin had morphed into a furious expression. He put his finger up to his lips. "Don't scream, or I'll cut you," he whispered. At this point, I was ready to accept my fate, when out of nowhere, I felt a sudden burst of rage explode inside of me. I grabbed his face and dug my nails deep into his eyes. The man let out a loud, horrible noise as he clenched his face in pain. I took this chance and made a run for it. I ran all the way back to my flat, and after struggling to put the key in the door, I managed to get inside. As soon as I shut the door, I collapsed onto the ground out of exhaustion and started to cry. My roommates all rushed down the stairs to see if I was okay. After walking me to a couch, I explained what happened. They were all shocked while at the same time happy to see that I escaped from the man. I rang up the restaurant and quit the next day. It was a shame, really. The owners were so kind, and I really didn't mind the place, but I was too terrified to return, knowing that that man could be waiting for me. I've started back at college now, and I'm slowly recovering from that incident. Sometimes, I do get nightmares just thinking about what may have happened if I hadn't attacked that man like I did.
Thanks for listening. If you want to help build the True Chiller community, like, subscribe, and share.